Hello, Vanakkam, and welcome to Sudarshan's podcast. I'm Sudarshan, the host. Today, in this episode, we'll be talking about product management. We have three amazing guests who's been a product manager almost a decade, who's building amazing stuff. And one similarity here is all three of them are from B2B SaaS background. So, we have a lot of things to talk. So before that, I'll introduce each of them. I'll start with Surender. He's a good friend. We know for a while. He's building this new product called Hockey, which is a marketing intelligence tool. And he was initially heading a product team at Elo.ai. And now Anirudh is one of the product managers in Devro, one of the companies I look up to, and Shubi from Ima Unlimited. They are building AI agents, and recently, if you are active in LinkedIn, you might have seen their SDR agent. Yep. Hello, guys. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, nice to be here, Sudarshan.
Wanted to start with this question. So, product management is new management consulting, right? Things are changing. Business grads are becoming product managers. They're not relatively. They are not comparing big fours in the recent a decade, maybe. So the things are changing. So, what do you think about these PM gurus out there on YouTube selling courses for some $100 or stuff, right? PM gurus and PM courses. What do you think about them?
See, and this is something that I keep hearing from folks who reach out to me for a very early career PM, saying, hey, should I take this course or not? Because generally speaking, the idea, at least in the past, has been, if I need to enter a field, the easiest way for me to do is a certified course so that I can go around and use that as credentials also, right? And I would say that is fine if you are in a very in a field like software engineering, but even that's kind of changing a lot now, right? Because there are some very skills that are more easy to gain by just reading books and just by experimenting a lot. But with PM, I think it's a field that's extremely experiential driven, and because the functionality of a PM in different organizations is different, right? A PM at Yellow is probably going to be doing a lot different work than a PM at, I don't know, at Walmart or something else, right? Which means that there are the general skills that are applicable to PMs are very, very different, right? In different organizations. So the point I'm trying to make here is basically there isn't a lot to kind of gain from some of these sort of PM courses that are there. But that being said, if you are having a question in your mind saying, hey, is PM even the right thing for me to do or not? Then that's a good opportunity to kind of, just get your feet wet, try and understand whether it is something for you or not. But if the question is basically, hey, if I do this course, is it going to be much easier for me to get into a PM role? I don't know if the answer to that is yes. Very unlikely that's yes.
Yeah, to add to that, it's a bit like going to the gym, right? Like, or having very good health. So you just by watching videos of people doing workouts, you can't really improve your posture. You just need to put in the 1,000 reps or 10,000 reps or whatever. And the second component of being a good product manager is a lot about just mindset and character. Like you're building your character to make the right decisions, not fall for several biases that humans have, etc. All of this can only come by practice, and it's self-practice and reflection. Nobody can teach you this by reading or learning. So agree, it's a completely experiential field. Can only learn by doing.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much something I'll also agree, because couple of things, right? One is the experience part that both highlighted. The other one is how fast they are trying to get into that. Like as I think Anirudh said, that's probably the easiest way to get a high level overview, but that's not sufficient, right? But I actually usually I don't have I have this thought of not shortlisting someone who actually go through a course. I mean, in fact, that's a bad pattern for me when I'm interviewing for a let's say, a position, be it a software engineering position or for a PM fresher kind of a position, right? I don't really, let's say, shortlist people who have done these courses because in my mind, it's like they they are trying to take the shortcut over there, and if that's the only thing that they have done, saying that, hey, I did the PM course, now you give me the job, right? That's a very, very negative pattern for me. They should have done something else, or at least they should join at a entry level, in that case, saying that I am starting from scratch, something like that. But then it's not like we don't hire people who are not experienced. We do hire freshers as well, but just because they have done this course, it's not a really big value add in my opinion.
Yeah, like there are
Mm-hmm.
certain skills that we look at, right? Like in Yellow, we
Mm-hmm.
had this product specialist role which we had created, where we hired people right out of college, and those people are have joined amazing companies. Like they are leading products now. They are people I really respect in terms of critical thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
just the skills need to be there: critical thinking, structured communication, problem solving, caring about the user, right? User empathy, all of that. And those are the skills we looked for because we were hiring people out of college. We did not really look for any such experience. The other last thing I'll say is it's very important for people to understand not everyone can be a good PM. I think
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand this
Mm-hmm.
enough, right? This is the hard truth. Um, just like how not everyone can be a top 1% software engineer. I know I cannot be. I was a software engineer. I realized very quickly I can't be top 1% and I switched. So I think people should genuinely ask themselves and try to evaluate early in their career if they have the right skills, temperament, and the definition of success. Is all of that aligned with what success looks like for a top product manager? Because all of these courses sell this fake idea that anyone can become a good PM. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally not true. I think certain kind of people will be better product managers than other kind of people. It's just the kind of person you are, to be very honest.
Right.
Or
I
it will
think.
just need a lot of work. Like probably you won't
Mm-hmm.
put that much work, right? Just why take the hard path? Then just figure out something which you are good at.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying skills and mentioned like a couple of things in between, right? So what really stands out? If imagine I want to become a product manager. So what are that three, four, five skills I want to have to become a good product manager?
Okay, I can. Okay, I'll tell you like what we evaluated for. Like number one
Mm-hmm.
thing was critical thinking and problem
Okay.
solving,
Mm-hmm.
right? Number two was temperament,
Mm-hmm.
um, because usually as PMs, your job is to create clarity and give your team a sense of direction in massive
Mm-hmm.
ambiguity. So is that
Mm-hmm.
something that you can do?
Mm-hmm.
For early people, like really, this is the only thing I will kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at, right? Can you look at problems critically, solve them? Is your communication good enough to create clarity? Can you lead a group
Mm-hmm.
of people by creating a vision? And
Mm-hmm.
in general, do you have just like good product intuition, right? Like, do you have
Mm-hmm.
an opinion of which product is good or bad? Do you, if I ask you three things you'll do to improve WhatsApp, do you have WhatsApp is a product everyone uses. So do you have an opinion on that? Where we are just trying to judge if they have user empathy and just basic product intuition. At early
Mm-hmm.
stage, this is really what I at least evaluate for. Like, and curiosity maybe, right? Which is related to if you're curious, if you read a lot, or if you think deeply, basically you will be deep thinker. You'll be able to objectively make decisions, all of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, would like to go deep on that deep thinking and critical thinking. What it
Yeah.
takes to become a deep and critical thinker.
The best person to answer this is Anirudh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I'll add two more things that what should be said, right, before getting to it. I think the one of the things that I've seen when kind of talking to folks who either want to get into PM or early
Mm-hmm.
PM is this communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about like can you write a good PRD, none of that, right? It's just because as a product manager, your job is
Mm-hmm.
basically to go and influence, to go and get what's in your mind into someone else's mind, right? And communication is the most critical part of it. Um, and I've seen a lot of folks who are able to kind of get a lot of things out, but not in the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you are able to communicate very well, essentially that also means that you have a lot of clarity of thought, right? So
Okay.
So that's one of the things I think when we've talked to early PMs, we've always seen that. And the second thing I wanted to highlight was it's more of that soft skill personality kind of thing. But I've seen that the best PMs and the ones who have grown the highest are the ones who've always exhibited a lot of humility in them, right? Basically understanding that they don't know everything in the world. And because of that, they've been able to sort of digest very critical feedback about themselves, and improve themselves a lot, right? It's one of those soft skill things, but humility, I think, has been at least in my experience of what I've seen with PMs, like the ones who have been very humble have been the ones who have grown the fastest. So coming to the deep thinking part,
Yeah.
right? It is basically, I think, just exhibiting curiosity. I've always had this kind of, in my experience at least, I've always seen that sometimes it's just the right question that you need to ask, and that triggers this entire new pathway that you've not seen of earlier, right? So to me, when we talk about deep thinking and when we talk about critical problem solving and all of that, one part is basically, are you asking the right questions? How do you even know what are the right questions? And now more than ever, actually, if you think about it, it's easier to get information, right? Ever, I think in our age, have we found getting information to be a lot more easier, right? You can just go to ChatGPT, you can just go to Perplexity, you get an answer almost immediately. But what's still hard is asking the right questions, right? So to me, when we talk about deep thinking, a big part of it is also asking the right questions. And the second part is understanding what is fundamental truths and what is your bias that's there, right? A lot of times when you start thinking about things, you get into this notion of confirmation bias, right? You have something in your mind and you really want it to be true. So you go and look for information that aligns with your thinking. If you kind of work around these two things, that essentially is sort of deep thinking, right? There are, of course, other things, I'm sure, but to me, at least the way I operate, it's basically a combination of these two things.
I think this seems little interesting. Asking the right question. I totally accept that. But how one should know whether they are asking the right questions or not? How would you answer this?
Yeah, I don't think you'll always.
Again, is this the right question to ask?
Yeah. So that's the beauty of it, right? I don't think any question is bad. No question is bad. It's more about whether, ultimately what happens is, and I think Surinder would be able to relate to this a lot. You have a new idea, right? You go around asking these people, hey, why hasn't this been done? Or why hasn't this been done, right? And some people will give excuses and say, hey, this is this way, this is this way, right? This is how it is. And then somewhere down the line, you realize that everyone is just saying this is the way because that's how it's always been, right? And that's the opportunity that you have, right? So now, how do you get to that? It's by asking questions to a lot of people, trying to digest it, trying to get to the bottom of things, right? But I don't think any question is wrong, to be honest. It's just that one question leads to another question, and ultimately you find something interesting, and that's what comes out of it. I think, Surinder, you should talk about how you came to the hockey idea.
Yeah, definitely. I think what I really like to say, Daniel, I think this is the time or the time where the skill of asking the right question is going to be more important, the most important, right? So you have answers, you just need to ask the right question. So I think this is sort of relevant for any kind of job out there, but for a PM whose most important work is to sort of organize this information to be able to take the right decision. I think this is going to be the most important skill set, right? Maybe. Yeah. Asking the right question. It's always about understanding let's say whatever tool that we are going to build, or let's say the product that we are going to build. One more thing that I really like, or that I would look forward for any new one, let's say candidate that I'm evaluating, is more on a breadth approach as well. Let's say how broad they are able to think, and how let's say, curiosity. They have to understand the broader scheme of things. That's something that I really like also. I mean, one thing is going deep. Yes, you need it. But I think in the early phase of the career, you should also try to understand as breadth as possible, as broad as possible, so that you'll be able to connect a lot of things together, and you'll be able to relate with a lot of things. I mean, you can't just stay really blind about what's happening in your parallel industry or what's happening in your own industry with, let's say, the other competition, what's happening with these job roles as well. Like, a lot of job roles are actually changing. There are going to be new job roles. There are going to be some of the job roles that are going to go, let's say, irrelevant and so on, right? So you should try to have
Will
that kind
product
of
manager be part of those
uh,
jobs?
that's a really difficult question to answer, because there are different type of product managers, and there can be some consolidation of roles. There can be a product developer who can do both product management as well as development part of it, or there can be a let's say, design engineer who can be both a designer as well as a developer. So I think there can be a lot of consolidations and there can be a lot of such things happening. But yeah, very early to see which kind of roles are going to be. And I think, yeah, maybe we are deviating a little bit, but the organizations are also going to be really, really different. I mean, there isn't going to be a single organization structure that will be followed across, right? But any organization, I think, there is a lot of scope for organization level innovation, right? Like, where you can create new job roles which might not be existent earlier, which can eventually become a let's say, the basic building block of the organization and so on. So a lot of things might happen over there. Let's maybe get to that in the later part of the conversation. Coming back to what we figured out at hockey was, like, we understood that same thing what Anirudh said. So there are, with a new technology that has been popping up recently, lot of things that can be done which can question the existing way of operations, like what has been happening so far, existing way of asking whether this job really important to do, or is it needed to be done, because it was not possible to be both automated as well as there are multiple layers as well, right? So when you're doing it manually, you might want to do step 1, step 2, step 3. Now probably when you are able to do it at scale, when there is no limitation with respect to how much you can accomplish, you can probably go directly to step 3. Step 1 and step 2 might not be even necessary, right? That's applicable for both jobs, tasks, as well as job roles. So that's where we started, and we digged into the marketing organization, and we tried understanding what are the, especially in the creative production process, which is the 60-70% of the efforts that goes into a marketing team most of the times, right? So we figured out that there are certain things that can be done in a much more efficient manner when done automatically, as well as certain things that probably are not needed to be done, because you don't need to accomplish step 1 to go to step 3. There is a way to go to step 3 directly. So there are such things that we are trying to see. That's one of the angles that we took in approaching this problem statement. But talking to these individuals at a fundamental level, understanding what their day looks like, and also having a view of what is the objective of this particular let's say, this particular department or this particular function for the overall organization. I think if you are able to connect these two things together, you'll be able to come up with some really important problem to solve in a right way. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through what we spoke, right? Critical thinking to improve it, ask good questions, don't be biased about, so don't have a self bias, right? Then having a good temperament, handling the ambiguity, good communication, lead people, have a good product intuition slash sense, and curiosity to challenge the status quo, right? Which is what Surender said. And one more thing I feel, and when I talk to multiple product managers, of course, during their interview process, they have this round where they talk to an engineering manager. How much a product manager fluent in engineering related stuff? Because all three of you from engineering background, you were an engineer before, then you become a product manager. Is that important to know technical stuff for a product manager?
Yeah, I will maybe first answer to this. I feel so, but that also depends on the type of product that you are building, right? So let's say here with respect to Yellow, what we were working on, it was a tool for developers to build, let's say, chat applications and voice applications, right? So ideally, it's easy for someone who has already developed to, let's say, relate to the pain points, as well as you yourself are has been probably an user of the product, right? So it's easy to understand the dynamics. It's easy to understand the day of life and all these things. So that comes naturally, and there is no, let's say, there is no scarcity to developers who are, let's say, who are interested to turn into PM as well. So there are a lot of developers. I mean, the sample space is really, really large, and it's easy to probably for someone being a developer to be able to do a good job over there. That's one thing. Other type of product managers, let's say, I don't know if that's a really important skill set, or even let's say the career graph of sorts, right? So I have seen a lot of when I say engineering, like I assume it's computer science engineering, I mean coder, right? So uh, I've seen a lot of non-coders becoming great engineers, even at Hello as well as other places as well. So it's not like it's the must-have, but depends on the type of product as well as the user persona that you cater to. It's a good to have, I would say, but definitely a good to have. I have seen such people relating to the problem statements much easier and in a much faster fashion. They ramp up really fast.
Yep, and one more thing I want to touch is Anirudh said initially when I asked about product management courses out there, it is one of the way to build the credibility, right? So, what are the other patterns you are seeing to build a credibility for a product? Anyone who wants to become a product manager.
I think I'll add one more thing to what Surendra said, and then come to your question, right? Which is, I think a lot depends on the kind of position that you are going after, right? Like I said earlier, the PM surface area is very large. There are platform PM roles, there are outbound PM roles, there are so many different sort of positions and roles that are available, and a lot depends on the company also. So, for example, at DevRev, there's a heavy developer focus that's there, right? So the expectation is that almost everyone needs to understand at least what an API is, what SDKs are, so on and so forth, right? So there, of course, you will be talking to an engineer almost on a day-to-day basis as well, not just in an interview, right? So if you guys are not talking on the same wavelength, then it's not going to work out, right?
Okay.
So, it depends a lot on that. I can give you an idea of how my discussions were at Freshworks, right? So at Freshworks, I was part of the AI PM team itself, and there, including in my interview rounds, I was asked a lot about machine learning. A lot, like it was almost like a data scientist interview, right? About how you do validations.
You could have redirect them to your LinkedIn articles, right?
Yeah. So it was like really heavy, right? Like one of my interview rounds was with the senior director of machine learning. Another one was with the senior engineering manager for the AI platform, right? So it depends a lot, right? I'm sure that if you go to some other role, you're probably not going to be asked that much about engineering, right? But
yeah, like I can give an example, right, of such roles. Like I used to work in Quizzes. Quizzes creates tools for students, students from, let's say, K-12, to have more engaging learning, right? So there you just need to be an expert at psychology and gamification. If you are good at those two things, it really doesn't matter how good of an engineer you are. You need to have very good empathy with kids, how kids think and feel. So being good at engineering was not one of the core criteria. Just an example. Another could be any growth product manager roles, right? You are in Swiggy, you want to solve for monetization, for example. Again, you probably don't need to be a good PM. Just giving some counter examples. Like good at engineering.
Got it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
What was the other question actually? I think
about the credibility. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was about how to
Maybe before Anirudh goes into that credibility question, I have one thing.
I like it
In
now.
fact, I
Go ahead.
mentioned, I mentioned that adding a course to your resume almost has no credibility, according to me, especially if it's a PM starter course or something like that. It's actually a negative credibility, I would say. So,
Is it a bias, Surendra?
maybe because I think, I think it's a bias because I have always whoever who calls out that course to be the highlight of their profile. I think they usually don't. They're not that curious. They have not searched for a lot of things, and then they have learned. They have just consumed whatever was served on a platter. Probably most of the time at an expense of spending a lot to that course and so on. Right? So that's a small bias. I'm not talking about, let's say, a course that helps you get specialized on something. Let's say getting really, let's say, to understand how growth marketing is done, or let's say how a growth PM should, let's say, what are the things that a growth PM should know. That is little different. But a crash course on product management usually is something that does not add a lot of value or credibility to the resume, and even when you speak to them, you will not really, because like most of the times these textbook terms or the textbook definitions almost don't get used in the let's say real world problem solving, right? Like that in fact might create some bias for yourself, that you'll have to follow the textbook thing. And I think, as Anirudh mentioned, it's more experience based as well as it's more learning based. You need to keep learning. You need to, whenever you are approaching that problem statement, most of the times you are going to, if you have not seen that again earlier, you'll have to go ahead and search how to solve for it. You have to, let's say, approach people. You'll have to approach, let's say, organizations or whoever has solved it earlier, whoever is solving it right now. You can do a lot of research. You should do a lot of research while doing it. There is no zero easy path of getting to know that from a course or a starter course, I would say.
One of the things that we've seen, and I'm sure Shubhi and Surinder can relate to this, is when we've been talking to some of the folks who want to move into PM, right? Especially during the first or second interview rounds. The ones who are have done one of these courses, right? And what do they teach in this course is basically frameworks, right? This is how you need to prioritize. This is how you need to do a product teardown. This is how you need to do it. It becomes very evident that they are trying to apply, they're trying to find the right framework for this problem, right? And that completely changes the way that they approach the problem, because they've been taught that this is how you solve this problem, right? And they force fit some frameworks to some problems when it doesn't even make any sense. And that sort of a bias actually starts becoming counterproductive, right? You're basically, it's like when you have a hammer, everything becomes a nail sort of a situation. So to maybe go to the other side of this, right, which is, okay, then how do you really build credibility and how do you really figure things out? I think some of the one of the best ways, let's say you're a developer or whatever you're doing, right? It's just to slowly start inculcating some product thinking into what you're doing on a daily basis. For example, some of the best ideas that I've come across have been from engineers who have started bringing some customer thinking.
Not from designers.
Designers, of course, right?
Okay.
Designers, of course. But like developers who basically start bringing more customer thinking into the way that they do. They start saying, hey, why is this customer doing it this way? There's such a better, easier way to do it, and then they just go build it, right? And those are the people that I have personally enjoyed working with, right? So what's better than just showing that, hey, you've actually, while you are a developer or while you are a designer or when you are a marketer, you are bringing in that product thinking already in the way that you approach things. What's better credibility than that, right? Basically saying, hey, I'm doing a PM's job without actually being a PM. That's like fantastic.
Yeah. So when you talk about your experience, right, in your first round, the way you introduce yourself, the way you talk about the things you did, How do you demonstrate that you brought that product thinking, user first thinking, problem solving? I think one more framework I am thinking of is you need one spike, right? So there are two things. You need to show that you understand something very deeply, right? So people are very interested in hiring PMs who understand a domain very deeply, right? Even if you are very early in your career, nobody is stopping you from learning all about UPI or how finance works and how that impacts India. Having very good point of view, just talk to five people who are good at it today, who are experts. And if you are smart enough, you will have a view which is better than most people, most PMs in the country on finance, right? So one, you can demonstrate that you really deeply understand a domain very well and then apply to that kind of companies. And how do you learn? By talking to the right people and just like playing with the products, right? If you're curious about it, you will learn. The second is demonstrating that you can do what a PM needs to do, which is one is what Anirudh said. The other is when I started applying for PM roles or why I was hired as a PM in Yellow. I was an engineer, right, before that. But when I was in college, I used to manage a team of 20 people. And we had like this maker space called Innovation Garage. And I had a lot of initiatives where I brought people together to drive creativity and innovation. Right. So just the fact that I was able to lead a team of 20 people to solve unknown problems, it's a very big demonstrator that yes, I have the right temperament, I have the right problem solving skills, etc. So it doesn't even need to be anything about your work, I feel. It is just the past experiences you have had where you have demonstrated like solid leadership, deep domain understanding, ability to take initiatives, bring them up a lot more. And that definitely helps too. Yeah.
I think while you are talking, you wrote down on the other side and prepared for this very well, I guess. If I'm not-
No, I just wrote the two words. Like I was trying to find a framework. So what you understand very deeply and what you have done, which like really stands out, those are the two axes that I'm thinking.
Awesome, awesome. Right.
This is a skill,
So,
right? This is a PM skill.
yeah,
You
yeah.
thought
Yeah,
you
yeah,
thought that I had written it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
and
I
and
could,
it really is. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
No. I think what Anirudh was telling, right? So no one is stopping you from learning what's happening out there, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
recently, I've been hiring a lot of both engineering interns, freshers, as well as PM entry level PMs as well. The kind of knowledge some people, very few people, right? They have with respect to what's happening in the industry, as well as with respect to how certain products are evolving and so on. That really fascinates me. I didn't have, I mean, of course, I didn't, whenever I used to hire earlier or when I entered into this space, I didn't have that kind of knowledge or that much of, let's say, data with me, right, when I actually interviewed. But yeah, now I see that people are going way beyond to understand how things are, and people who are really curious are actually really knowledgeable nowadays. I mean, there is a real knowledge arbitrage that has happened, right? And this is something that I think everyone should go through whenever, even for entry level engineering roles. Let's say if they are going to apply in a SaaS, or if they are going to get going to be a SaaS, let's say an SD to start with, right? I think even there, I would expect them to be kept updated with respect to what's happening out there, both with respect to the latest technology, the latest models. Of course, that goes without saying, right? They should understand what are the latest models and so on. You'll be so surprised that one end you have people who really go their way beyond to understand these things. On the other hand, there are people who just say that, hey, I was not taught in a college, or
Yeah.
I didn't actually study this, or I didn't know that I was expected to know this, right? I think that comes out really bad when
Yeah.
we try to speak with them.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions when hiring freshers in Yellow used to be, tell me something that you learned last week, which you think I might not know.
Oh,
Right. And some
okay.
people gave great answers to it, like
Yeah.
nothing related to tech. People would tell me about horoscopy, like they went really deep into astrology because their marriage discussions are going on, or someone in their family is getting married, and they would teach me 5 new things. So yeah, like such people, you'll just come out of the interview feeling really amazed and surprised, and you feel I
Yeah.
learned something from this person. That's a big
Yeah.
green flag.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So, one thing which I think Anirudh and should be mentioned in between is different types of PMs out there, right? There is a platform PM, data PM, growth PM. So, but is that something necessary, or a PM is a person who could get into anything, has that thing to learn stuff and adapt to that environment, or what is the right way to approach this?
So your question is basically, um, if you get into, let's say, a platform PM role, is it impossible to move to other roles? Is that the question?
Yep. How a person okay, how a PM should equip himself, like to juggle between these different roles, or be a generic PM. And okay, if I'm not wrong, should be worked in yellow, right? Then quizzes. It's, I think, the audience is different. Is that right, Shubi?
Yeah, but there was one similarity. We were trying to solve for B2B in both, right? So there is usually some common thread that will take you from one role to the next. So this was a
Right.
common thread.
So definitely the learning curve when you join quizzes is going to be different.
Yeah.
So, yep, how would one should adapt, or how one should equip themselves to that?
So you're saying how do we learn fast when we join a new product role?
Yeah, go ahead with that. Yeah.
Okay, after joining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think in my mind it's actually very critical. I recently switched companies twice. Unfortunately,
What
not
happened?
intended. What happened was I joined quizzes. I was hoping to stay for a long term, but midway we realized that the problem we were solving, it was a 0 to 1 project, and it was more of a marketing and growth problem, and not really like a core product building problem. So all of us, it was a kind of team understanding as we went deeper into the problem. So there was not really much for a senior PM to do at that point in that team. And I was also very excited to go back to agentic AI and Gen AI, which is what I was doing at Yellow. So I switched. Yeah, I think so. That was one switch where I had to leave quizzes much sooner than I had initially planned. But yeah, anyways, coming back to ramping up, right? So I have some very strong thoughts on it. I've ramped up twice. I think one thing is, especially if you're joining a company which is where there are all, like A players, really amazing performers, you have to understand. And if you have been a great performer somewhere else, you have to understand that they have zero trust on you the day that you join, right? They are asking themselves, did I make the right choice? Because this senior PM is such a high leverage position. The person who has hired you is a little bit scared. Hey, was my judgment correct? And they are asking themselves that question every single day. It's extremely important that you, as soon as possible, completely diffuse that question and earn their trust. Right? So I would say, like I tell everyone in my team who joins, first 4 weeks, you have to go above and beyond. Basically, just get obsessed about the problem, about the role, earn everyone's trust, because that really helps you get comfortable later on to take your time. But I would say do not take a lot of time initially and try to ramp up very, very quickly. We can talk about how you ramp up quickly. But basically, earning people's trust is 2, 3 things, right? Demonstrating you have the right temperament, right? Like, for example, if the company needs someone who can make quick decisions with less data, demonstrating that you can do that instead of going around looking for data, right? So they are seeing, is this person a culture fit? Second, demonstrating you can work with the team very well, gelling with engineers, designers. So that's again a big red flag. And usually, good companies will have this culture of hire quickly and fire quickly, which is the right culture, I believe, right? Because if we made the wrong hiring decision, there's no point in delaying that, undoing that, right? So first few days are very critical, in my view. Now, how do you ramp up quickly? Yeah, basically just obsess over it. Like just go to the bottom of every possible thing. Also, you have to prioritize. Day one, everything is open. But one thing you can do is ask a lot of questions and try to get answers directly from the DRI, directly responsible person for that thing, right? So like they will not come and tell you, hey, do you have any questions? Just block time with them, sit with them, and try to go really, really deep. I'll say do your own research, read all the least you can do is read every single PRD that has been written around your product, all documents, all Figma files. The least you can do is look at other products in the same industry, look at what's like, try to form that broad view of where is the industry headed, what are the problems, attend customer meetings, right? Look at support board, what are the top support issues being created, try to understand the thinking behind the roadmap. What's our right to win? What's our vision? What are our differentiators? Stuff like that. So this is just very basic stuff. But yeah, the key in my view is doing it as soon and as quickly as you can. So I actually just jump all over it for the first 4 weeks. Once I'm comfortable, I can take a step back. I can take my time, prioritize things better.
Right. How is it going for you, Anirudh? I think it's been 4 or 5 weeks in Devrov.
Devrov, it's been, I think it's, just been 3 months. 3 months today.
Oh, 3 months, right.
3 months
Right.
today. So I completely agree with what Shubhi is saying, because I think it's very important to build that trust very quickly, because two things, right? One is, of course, the fact that you want to, at least with your engineering team, with your design team, you want to make sure that they know that you can contribute to that in a very positive way, right? And the onus is on you to prove it, not on them, right? They're not going to come and ask you for your opinion on things just because you're a PM, all right? The onus is on you to prove that you can contribute in a very positive way. So yeah, I think I've done exactly all the stuff that Shubhi is talking about, right? Even personally from my front as well. Just go crazy. No job is a small job when you join first, right? Do everything, whatever is possible. Be the person out there that goes and says, "Hey, do you need help with that? Do you need help with this?" Right? I have also sat and basically looked at bugs. I've triaged bugs, for example, right? Something which some people might say is not even a PM's job, for that matter. And even at Yellow, early in our days, right, we used to do basically everything, right? We used to do solution engineering. We used to go and talk to customers. I've even written some code for some reason. I don't know why. We've basically done, pre-sales work, everything, right? And the idea is that you want to be as exhaustive in that search for knowledge and the search for the culture of the organization, so that you fit in, right? And why is that important? Is because once you have built that relationship, once you have built that trust, right, that's when you can have very open conversations. Hey, this is how the product perhaps should be, or this is why we should change this feature to be this way. Because once there's trust and once there's a very good relationship, both parties understand that, hey, it's not about this guy kind of coming and saying what I built is wrong, but saying that this is perhaps the better decision for the customer or for the user, right? It's not about me and you, it's about this other person, this other customer or user. That requires trust and relationship building.
Yeah, also making people feel that you are able to catch their wavelength very quickly, right? Like where they are, what problems they are solving on a daily basis. You are able to, like in a 30-minute conversation, understand and play it back to them. So they feel, oh, this person understands me. Yeah, they are a part of my team. So that's very important. And also, obviously, delivering value from day one. Like, so in some small ways, start contributing from day one, and people should be grateful that you are finally here and you are helping, right? Especially in a startup. The feeling people should have is, oh, thank God Shubhi has joined. Right? That's the ideal outcome.
Yeah. It's about building trust. And to build trust, you have to have that wavelength between all the folks you work with, be it developers, designers, marketeers, sales folks. Of course, you get into calls with customers. Maybe you help in solution engineering and stuff like that, right? Especially in B2B. Yeah. So, okay, we'll come to this. Since for listeners, I'm a designer. So I know how a designer portfolio should look like, because I recently gone through an interview and know like structured like what I need. For a PM, is there any portfolio out there, or how a PM's portfolio should look like?
So this is for an entry level PM, like a fresher of sorts, or someone with some experience.
Entry level PM. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay, I believe that. Sorry, Anvit, sorry to interrupt, but I believe that your previous experience, is your portfolio, right? So all three of you has your experience. You have done things, right? For anyone who is entering, they just have a certificate with them, college certificate. Nobody is considering that anymore, I guess. I mean, I'm not talking about the top tier institutes, but other institutes, right? So how one should have their portfolio?
I think we kind of discussed this in the credibility section already, right? So things that you understand very well, demonstrate. So write about them, but not like a common essay, right? Which looks like GPT. Write something which is very insightful and unique. Just one, two pieces are sufficient, which makes the reader think. Record something about them. Like people are doing interesting things these days. Like someone became a Zomato delivery person for a few days, and then they wrote about how that can be better. Essentially, I think we have covered this. Demonstrate understanding and demonstrate your ability to deliver outcomes in whatever way you can.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you were to ask, let's say, if you're asking if what's the easiest way I can get my resume shortlisted, right? I think that's a great one, because there are literally like I just posted a job posting few weeks back. Within 15 minutes, I got 80 resumes, and I had to stop that job posting of sorts. Right. So there is a lot of folks applying for probably one job. Let's say the ratio is somewhere around even at Yellow, it was like somewhere around 1:300 of sorts, and so on. And so that's the kind of this thing. So where uh, if you want to make it stand out, I'll tell one example where it made made that profile stand out, and I eventually shortlisting and talking to them. Right. So they had created a lot of case studies, as well as let's say market research documents of some random industry. I mean, they might have been researching about a particular industry. Maybe it's something like your last mile delivery industry, or quick commerce, or let's say in SaaS it can be something like a customer support or a marketing retention marketing automation. So they have, it means that they have spent some time to research that, and they have the ability to put together in probably a concise document and share it across to me, which is sort of a good knowledge for me also to just go through. I'm not going to waste my time in going through that, right? It's a good knowledge for me. If I go through that, I'm going to learn something, right? So that really I felt that to be good way to position your profile, where you have a portfolio section of at least something relevant that you have gone through, and that's more interesting. And one more thing that should be mentioned, maybe a little bit addition to that, is I really value people. Now, I think now there is going to be a lot of importance to good quality content. I mean, coming up with some generic content is very, very easy, right? And now, how someone is going to write a piece of content that's probably a little bit opinionated, a little bit specialized, and also shares their experience and all these things, that's going to be very important. If they are good in writing such things, I think, yeah, they should do. I always go through some most of the times I used to go through their LinkedIn profile. If they are posting something relevant, if they are writing some piece of content that's sounding interesting, or that's actually from their experience or their opinion, whatever it is, right? Depending upon the level where they are right now, it might not be that specialized, it may not be that strongly opinionated. That's still fine. I think coming up with some original content is always something that I like when I'm especially looking for a PM role.
Yeah, like being authentic, right? For example, we are maybe 8, 9 years into our career. Someone who is fresh out of college should have ideally very different thoughts than us, right? And we should learn about their kind of generation and their thoughts. So that authenticity has to come out. It shouldn't feel like copied from 5 sources and pasted. Julian
Now Shubhi
Shapiro.
talks like she's like 20 years away from us.
No, there is one guy called Julian Shapiro who has a very good four thing blog on how to write well. I've read multiple times. amazing.
Cool.
Like if someone wants to write well, they should go through. And it need not be writing. You can record, you can send whatever.
Yeah.
I also feel like please don't send resumes if you really want to stand out. Have something compelling to say, send it directly to the founders and senior people in the company. If it's compelling, you will get a call back. But
Yeah.
compelling being the keyword there.
Compelling.
Yeah.
Cool. Right.
Yeah, one thing, this is with respect to how to maybe come up with your resume, right? That's one part. And I think as should be mentioned, touch base upon like how to reach out, right? That's also very important. And uh, it's like I think Shubhi has been building AASDR, so she knows how to do an outreach and so on, right? I've literally seen a lot of people who actually do the practice of proper
Yeah.
outreach. They do some 7, 8 touch points. They send on email, they send on LinkedIn, they even try to call and so on. I've seen such people who have who really execute that outreach process to be able to go through that interview, and they also maintain a pipeline of okay, I have reached out to this many people, this many have responded, this many are under nurturing, and this many people are actually have scheduled for first round and progress. I mean, that level of process put in as well as work put in, I've seen with few people as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think there's any harm in doing that. I think now with respect to the demand and supply of let's say that particular job profile as well as number of people looking for it, that's needed. Probably that might become a norm moving forward.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah. I saw a LinkedIn ad. So where they had created an ad targeting Zomato product managers or some company, I think Swiggy's product managers,
Okay.
saying, "Hey, do you want a new addition to your team?" Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Cool. Is there any compelling things you're seeing? People who just trying to stand out, PMs
I
especially.
think we mentioned a
Yeah.
few, right? So the ads, the blogs, certain videos, the outreach, and like just generally, I think everyone should have their own unique answer to this, right? What they are good at. Again, going back to the authentic point, some people are just very good at. They have a good personal vibe. So what I've seen people do is they'll just meet you in person, shake your hand, talk for 2 minutes, but in those 2 minutes you feel I want to talk more to this person, right? So it's really about what you can bring to the table. What's your unique strength? You should play on that.
You've been in the career, in the scenes. So once you become a PM, what you should be doing, I think we have spoken a lot about it, to ramp a little faster than the uh, general crowd.
Be curious. That's about it. Like I've always seen that the people who have been curious are the ones who basically move much faster than others, right? Of course, it doesn't just mean that you sit and you ask questions and then you get the answer and you do nothing about it. You also have to go and actually do things. But that's a given,
Yeah.
right? I'm assuming that you'll actually go and do things.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think like if you want to make it more objective, it's based on PM levels, there are certain core competencies, right, that you need to have. For example, if you're an entry level PM, like the basic things you should have is amazing at execution, right? Good product sense, good analytical sense. Those are the basics. So first, if you can figure out a way how to benchmark yourself versus the top 1% on that. If you are lucky, you are in a great company, then you already have benchmarks all around you. So if you are not in such a company, try to join such a company. Literally, that's what I'll say early in your career. Because like we all said, PM is very experiential, right? It's not that it's like if you're a developer, you have something like GitHub, where everyone, the best developers in the world, are putting their open source code. You can read it and you can benchmark yourself. It's kind of hard to do that in product management. You really need to see what greatness or excellence looks like to benchmark. So that is like a caveat. But yeah, basically based on the roles, you can have certain levels of competencies that you need. So like I said, initially you need good execution sense, product sense, good analytical sense. As you move up the ladder, you need to have more understanding of broader view of things, right? Being able to manage a portfolio of products, portfolio of initiatives, having seen products in different parts of the life cycle, like a 0 to 1 product, then having scaled a product, having seen the 1 to 10 journey. So I think the variation of experience, it might be the same industry or domain, so there needs to be some thread which combines, but the variance also helps. If you can demonstrate over the years that I was successful at a mid-level company and a startup and maybe a large company, that kind of helps. Or the other way you can position is, no, I'm just like a startup ninja. Then you have nailed it at 5 startups back to back. That's also fine. Then as you grow up in your career, you want more GTM understanding, right? Like more commercial sense. How does pricing work? For example, how does pricing evolving with all of this AI agent and all? How you mentor people, how you influence people not directly in your team, but maybe GTM people, marketing people, how you manage up and down, managing executives, managing people below you in a very good way. So I think it becomes a lot about navigating the organization also as you go more upwards in your career. Yeah, and then highest level would be like VP of product kind of people would have very clear sense of the company strategy overall, how different products come together to do. So that's sort of the, if you're looking for like level by level. But what you really need is you need to understand, but then as because we are talking about more junior PMs, what does good product sense look like? What's greatness there? Where do I stand? So you have to find a way to benchmark yourself. And second step is how do I improve? That's probably topic for another podcast. But like if you just I just try to make it a little bit more objective.
Cool, cool, cool. Yep,
Yeah,
one
maybe if I have
final,
to add
yes.
the one, sorry, one thing I think I wanted to add. I think both of these guys pretty much summed up everything. One thing I really value in a PM is having, let's say, ability to develop own opinions and ability to defend it or revise the opinion if that's not working out and so on, right? So to be able to, I mean, now building an unopinionated product is definitely setting up for a failure. So the product should have the opinion of its own, as well as the PMs who are developing it should have their own opinions as well. Of course, the opinions might be wrong. You will figure out on the while you're executing it, right? You will have to revise it out and so on. But to be able to be at that position of developing opinions, you should really be at the top of your game, which needs a lot of confidence in what you're doing. That comes, I think, as Shubhi mentioned, like you should put a lot of both curiosity as well as you should instill that trust in the organization. The early stages, right? Maybe maybe should be mentioned 4 weeks, I guess, but I would even tell maybe 3 months or 4 months. You should put as much as efforts possible. Get obsessed with the problem statement. Try to understand everything about it. Who are the actors in it? What are the problem statement? What are the value creation opportunities and everything end to end, right? Once you really understand and then you try to form your own opinions, that's when you'll be able to execute that. That's when you'll be able to even have a really strong conversations and debates, and these debates usually happen right whenever. And your product leaders, especially your manager or your VP, they will have really strong opinions, right? So in fact they are in that position because they have their strong opinions, right? So to be able to talk to them as well as talk about your opinions to them, you should understand the space really well. You should get obsessed well. So first 3-4 months, spend as much time as possible, go way beyond, and then try to establish that trust and try to establish that kind of a knowledge, and then try to form your own opinions, validate that opinions, and then get it going on.
So this episode is a little mind opening for me. No, I have read like multiple articles said the same, right? But when listening from people who is doing it and be curious enough to learn stuff regularly, and when Shubhi said that, right? What was the thing you learned last week? No, that is something. And if someone says horoscope, dude, that's really strange. And I really like someone has the curiosity to learn something totally different, right? Yep. So one question will wind this up. Final question, which me and Surender were talking about that yesterday. Who a PM should report to a product a leader or a marketing leader?
Who should a
Product
PMM report into?
Yep.
Should a PMM report into? Oh, that's a good question.
I think we could have planned to talk a whole episode on that.
Yeah, honestly, and this is going to be biased, but that's fine.
Yeah.
We are talking about opinions. A PMM reporting into a product leader allows for a lot of a stronger value prop to be or rather to be for a product to be positioned in a much stronger way. It's because you're building the product and you're building the positioning for that product both at the same time, right? And they're not going in they're going in parallels rather than in orthogonal ways. And I think, see, at the end of the day, when a customer is seeing the product for the first time, they are of course seeing what is actually built, which comes from the product side of things, but they're also seeing all the positioning elements of it, right? What it's supposed to be doing, how, for example, the pricing is. I've seen a lot of products where the product itself is great, but the pricing structure is absolute crap, right? And that just dissuades people immediately. Also, we're talking about, for example, how the distribution strategy should be. For example, look at Teams, look at Slack. Slack was the first mover. Slack has a lot of great features. Teams is still doing, I think, 4 times the MAU volume. And that's only because of distribution and the way they've bundled it, right? All of that is like PMM angles, right? So to me, I think highly opinionated, highly biased, but PMM being a part of product itself is the right way to do it.
Yeah, I agree that because even I think the recent, not recent, 4 5 months back, Brian Chesky's podcast with Lenny, right? I think he mentioned how he graduated most of his PMs to PMMs, and then like he sort of did a shift left kind of an approach there, right? Now that I'm building my own product, in a sense that I'm the PMM, I'm the PM for the product, right? So it's very important to take 2 things parallel and understand what's the positioning, what's the value that we are trying to create, be it conveying that outside as well as actually building that inside. That's very, very, I mean, parallel activities to do actually. And different organizations have different responsibilities for PMM. One who is solely responsible for the value proposition and the positioning activities, as well as some organizations, they go more even into influencing the type of keywords that we should build, and let's say they go more into the SEO strategy as well, the search engine ranking strategy, and all these things as well. There, of course, they will have a marketing perspective and purely a performance marketing as well as a search engine organic perspective as well. But from where it comes to product messaging and positioning, I think it should lie with the product, or it should go as together along with the product. Better if it's a single leader that they actually work with.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I was just thinking what more I can add. I think one nuance maybe we can add is for products which are being built new, right? Like lot of new features being built, very innovative, where what value we will deliver also is something we are discovering as we are building the product. It's obvious, like it couldn't be more obvious that product manager should figure out the messaging positioning. Organizationally, it's best if they report to the same person. Maybe for very mature products where the value is already very well known, product changes are more about keeping things stable, business as usual. Probably the incremental leverage is more on, it's the same value, but how well you communicate it, right? So it's more on the marketing side of things, and it might make sense to report to a marketing leader.
Yep. By this, I'll wrap this episode. Thank you so much, 3 of you. I'll think about this for the whole day next. I know how this is working for the listeners. Yep, that's it from my side today. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Sudarshan. Thanks for being a nice host.
Thanks.
Looking
Thanks,
forward
Sudarshan.
for
Any more
series.
appreciation, Anirudh, Shubhi, about me?
Thanks, Sudarshan. You were a great host. It was
Yeah.
lovely chatting with friends.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.